Hello and welcome to Sanctum. This is a weekly review on what I've done, my development process, how things are coming. I'm going to show you the current build. I'm going to show it to you within the editor, and then I'm going to talk about some behind the scenes stuff in code and within the editor, and how I put things together. This isn't going to be a technical breakdown, so I'm not going to be giving tutorials on how to do these things. It's just going to be a summary on what was done and how it was implemented. So this week the focus was to get a lot of my UI elements for the game in place and working. We still are lacking enemies, so a lot of the stuff for the settings is not implemented yet, and that's done on purpose, not out of lack of time or anything like that. We are waiting for we're waiting for some final game elements to be implemented in the game before I actually have settings for them, i.e. difficulty settings and game pacing. Other stuff like that is going. Other things in the settings are going to contain field of view and stuff like that. We can add that at the end as well. I don't want to add any of that stuff early game because we don't know how the pacing and how the game is actually going to be and what settings I really want them to mess with and what I don't. So that being said, let's dive in. So here we have a familiar splash screen. We have our game title glowing. I have some code in the background to show you how I did that. Upon entering the splash screen, we only have one button here, and it's to enter the game. So let's click that, and it takes us to our main menu here. Our main menu consists of 3 tabs and 3 game tiles. So the tabs, as I mentioned before, is going to consist of settings. The settings is, we talked about what I'm going to do with this, so that's why it's null right now. Controls will have a list of the controls, and I'm working on implementing that within Photoshop so it looks nice and fancy. I don't want to have to do it within the Unity editor if I don't have to. And gallery is going to be at the very end of the game, a way for the player to view different things that I've made, so like different levels, some objects that I've created, different enemies, the weapons of the game. As of right now, it's going to be unlockable, so as you progress through the game, you'll unlock different collectibles in the gallery. Here we have our 3 game tiles. Our 3 game tiles will take you to the campaign, which is the main game. When we click on the campaign, for right now, it takes us to our only level that I have loaded. But in a final version of the UI, we'll have the campaign open up and a grid of levels show up. And you can continue off at the last level that you reached, or you can replay an older level. The arcade mode will have various different levels, and it's basically just a kind of get your warm-ups in before you get into the campaign. It doesn't count towards any of the campaign. No experience is earned. You can't really upgrade anything. This is just mainly like an extension of the training grounds, the firing range, in the level that I'm about to boot up. Tutorials is a tab that is available within the main menu and will also be available in game. Tutorials is basically a more detailed controls list, whereas the controls is just a text. The tutorials will be a box, a scrollable box that has videos. I'm going to record end-game footage of myself playing and allow the player to actually see how to properly, ADS, or how to jump, or how to take cover, or use your abilities the right way, and what it looks like in conjunction to the controls. So this is what our main menu looks like. Let's dive in. So if we click on campaign, it minimizes our 2 supplementary canvases and boots up a loading blip. This little blip right here updates in real time. I have an asynchronous operation going on, and it is loading. I can show you that while it's loading. It's right here. We have an eye illuminator with load new scene. I'm handling it as an on-click event, which is why it's in a public function. We basically are hiding all of our canvases, keeping the video in the background playing, and while this starts loading, we update the game's loading text to our progress. And here we are in game. So now in game, this little room is new as well. So this is our main hub room. It branches off from where the player spawns initially. This is the initial player spawn. Over here we can travel to our firing range. Pick up some weapons. So the firing range still works as it always did. Our targets are still working. It's a good place for you to also, test your bullet damage. If we look at the bottom right corner next to our weapons, I've updated the ammo capacity for these weapons to be what they actually should be, minus that of my rifle. I'm still playing with the rifle. And since I brought up the rifle, might as well show you some cool stuff that we did. So now, as you can see, the rifle has a scope, and the scope works at hip fire, which I'm keeping because I like how it looks, and it also works ADS. So if we zoom in now, we have a very clear view on what we're shooting, and just to show that it's accurate, I will shoot at this little white dot. We should see a bullet decal, unless it disappeared. Let's try this again. Perfect. Very good. Okay, so our main hub area. It is laid out. This is the permanent layout, the frame, I guess I should say. This main hub is going to serve as a point for the player to come and basically upgrade his equipment, his abilities, and monitor his experience and whatnot. I did not include any of the terminals that he'll be going to upgrade. They're still in construction, but just for the sake of this video, I'll show you where there will be one right here in this large area where the player can come and upgrade his abilities, and then we have one back here where the player can come and exchange his XP into spendable points that he can spend at that store over here. Up here we're going to have a interactive trophy room. You will be able to collect, all your collectibles will be visible here. We're going to have different kind of decorative setups here. This doesn't really have any impact on the full game, but it's a great way for you to monitor your progress and what you've earned so far and thus far. So that being said, let's take a dive now into the UI and show you some of the things that were changed. So as you can see at the bottom left, we have our percent health and we have our percent armor. Our percent health is at 100 and so is our armor. If I walk into said turret range, we begin to take some damage, and we see 80, 60, and so on. Taking cover and pulling up my UI, we see that this updates in real time. This armor percentage is our current additional armor, and it is not out of a percentage, so it will be updated later on. For right now, the number is what's important. It's important to know that we have 25 additional armor to our health. It is displaying as a percentage, and that's just a little code flaw. I can just scratch this percent and update some UI, but essentially we have our details page. Our details page is going to show our player's name and supplementary information about their player that we'll fill out later in the further months of the game. Same with the settings, same kind of principle. We don't have enough stuff to fill this out yet. However, it's supposed to serve as a way to gauge your stats. You take a break, take a look at what you're dealing with. So we have 60% armor now, and we still have 60% health, and we still have 25 additional armor. Our upgrades page is where we will go to increase and basically upgrade ourselves. We have a vitality tab, an attack tab, and a utility tab. These are all things that we can upgrade. I put this here to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. The buttons are being workshopped in Photoshop. They're not going to look bland like this. It's going to look a lot better. There will be an icon, a couple blocks here to show you what level we have upgraded this ability to out of 5, and so on. When you click on these, this detail box will update to let you know what you're actually trying to do. So this is giving an example of increasing our max health. So it'll say plus 25% max health, and gives you a little blurb of what we're going to do, and it will do that for each of these. Same with vitality. Same with attack and utility. Vitality is what it sounds like. It's upgrades for your base health and shield. Our attack is you're going to be able to kind of increase your projectile stats, so your base damage, the range, the speed, and how much ammo you can carry per weapon. Moving on to utility, we have abilities. These are placeholder, just so for the sake of the video, so you can see what I'm trying to display here. So for example, lifesteal, if you have enough experience to upgrade yourself to lifesteal, we'll have a little blurb, and we'll have the description of what it is. So this increases the base projectile damage attribute by 25%. Oh, you know what? This is a mistake. I never changed this. So lifesteal is exactly what it sounds like. You will... A percentage of damage dealt to your enemies will be returned in health. Shield core is a shield that you can drop and mount. That has its own, HP, hit points. But you can stand behind it for mobile cover, which is nice. Second Wind is a resilience type ability where if you fall below a certain percentage of HP, you start to gain you start to gain your shield. Your max shield just regenerates, so that's a good one. So if you'd like to run and gun, and you take a lot of damage, this is a good ability. So basically, this is our upgrade tab with our different tabs. Our inventory is divided into 3 different sections here. We have our key inventory, we have our weapon inventory, and we have our miscellaneous inventory. So our key inventory is going to have things that persist throughout the entire game, not just the levels. This would be like card keys to open specific doors, which I'm color coding, very similar to Doom. Lift keys, stuff like that, things that you use throughout the entire game. Weapons is self-explanatory. This is just a place for you to view which weapons you've obtained so far, and there will be a little stat page underneath once the game's finalized to display your weapon's current stats, which is good because if you upgrade stuff, it's nice to see what you have and what it did to your weapons. Clicking on a different weapon will update its detail box. Same, and that goes for all 3 of these. Miscellaneous is the only one that is going to change per level, so this box just gets filled out with temporary inventory items that you only use per level. Some levels will require you to pick something up. Sometimes it's optional. Either way, those temporary items will be held and kept within this 3rd inventory spot, and the details box applies for this as well. Clicking on these items will give you additional information about them and what to do with them. Tutorials goes back to our same box as our main menu. There's going to be a scrollable list of videos here for you to watch if you get confused on how to play the game. So some additional things that I've added with our UI. There is an issue with, and actually a good way to show you is this. So when hitting escape, it prompts you to the menu page. Hitting resume, our cursor is hidden, which is the fix. Hitting escape to get out, our cursor are still showing until we fire a bullet, which is not good. That's a fix I'm going to apply after I record this, if I'm being honest, just because it's quick. But that was another fix that I had this week. Our cursor was showing. I've gotten rid of that and I put it back to locked, so there's no cursor flying off of our screen anymore. That's going to stay constrained to our window size. Restarting works, and we now have a box just to check so it doesn't restart as soon as we click if we misclick. I didn't freeze the menu in the background, and I did this not quite on purpose, but also I didn't fix it on purpose because I don't see how it is game breaking in any way. There's nothing that you can do here that isn't going to mess with this, so that's why I kept it. We can X out of it if we have to, we can cancel out of it if we have to, or we can say okay. So while it is reloading our level, I'll just talk about some stuff that I did. I just added a canvas here with a background. This is actually at 40%, not 0.4. I just need to update the UI for this. As this is loading, I'll dip into here just to show you some stuff. So, with the exception of our main scene manager, which is a script attached to our main canvas at the main menu. Okay, we loaded back up, good. All of our other scripts are found within something called Canvas Brain, and I'll show you that in just a minute. All of our different Canvas scripts are put on there regardless of what menu that we're on, and that's good to keep things clean. Let me just wrap things up here and show you exit to main menu works. This is our full game loop, and as you can see, it brings us back to our start where we can start again and we have everything. Okay. So the last thing I want to show while this boots up here, just wanted to show you how I organize these things. And Unity got mad at me. Okay, so I'm gonna load the scene here. Game scenes, main hub. Let's see. So as the scene loads, I just explain what I'm about to show you. I'm just trying to show you how I organize my files and the way I have things organized within the editor to make this easier on myself and for you guys who are watching, just to understand how things are put together. So I have a game object that is called Canvas Brain. It's right here. Let me go to organization. Oops. Okay. Canvas Brain is holding our different canvases. We have our game canvases, which consist of our menu, which is what we're looking at, and our HUD. Our menu and our HUD obviously all have their own unique logic that has to be worked out. So they have their own specific scripts, as does loading and as does the submenus, which we have in here. But you'll notice that if I click on Canvas Brain, I have the scripts attached all to this. I did this for simplicity. If I completely expand all of this out, you'll see quite a bit of game objects here. We're looking at close to 100, if not more, and it would get a little tedious trying to sort through all of these to find which ones have script attached to them and which don't. So to solve that issue, I created this empty game object. I named it the Canvas Brain, and the brain, just like any other brain, is responsible for how everything works and what everything does. So we have our game menu script here, which handles all of our details and stuff like that. We have our check window. These are all our check windows that pop up for when we need to restart and exit and stuff like that. This handles all of our pausing logic and stuff like this. The only things that are going to have their own separate little scripts are not, they're not separate scripts really, it's here. So our details menu, this and this and this. So our separate submenus are going to have their own scripts attached to them, and that's done on purpose. I didn't want to pull this out. I still can, but while I am building it, I am keeping them on here just because it's still in construction and it's easier for me to see what scripts are reading what game objects need what scripts. So for example, like these things right here, they're all still kind of being workshopped, so um, it's important for me to know that this script goes on this object and this object needs all of these things. Later on I can kind of clean this up and put it back onto the brain with the rest of these guys. So yeah, that is something I wanted you guys to see. Let's get out of 2D here, and I want to just kind of give you an overhead. So my bake time is still pretty high, unfortunately. We're about an hour and 40 minutes. But if we think about it, this is, it's not quite as big. Maybe I'd say 60% as big of as my full levels are going to be. So the bake time really isn't that bad. If I have 2-hour bakes between all my levels, it shouldn't be too terrible. But the way it's constructed is we have our training ground level here, which is 2 stories. And we have this is just a regular hallway. This is our main hallway that takes us to our main hub. So, not too bad. Just wanted to show you what everything's looking like. Coming up next week, we're going to finalize some UI stuff. That means I'm going to be working with animations and kind of making our UI a little bit more dynamic, bring it to life, instead of just having images pop on and off. It doesn't look very nice doing that. Get our UI also to be able to load levels. So I'm going to start working on my first actual level, and while that's being constructed, we're gonna I'm gonna start importing my enemies and kind of getting an eye. While this month is mostly going to be finalizing our UI and polishing our initial player game mechanics, I am trying to introduce the enemy logic and enemy code slowly this month to make next month a little bit easier to handle. So just some things to look at. But thanks for listening, and I will tune in with you guys in a week from today with some more stuff.